Yo, what is going on, everybody? So today I've got a very interesting topic for you. And I wanted to cover the Clementine Ford thing because I know that's the hot topic on a lot of people's lips, but that's not going to be today. What I actually wanted to share with you today, sorry, I'm just adjusting this. I'm toying around with this new setup. Let's see how I go. So what I wanted to talk about with you guys today is essentially we talk about the domestic violence industry, and a lot of feminists are like, oh, there's no industry, but let's reserve our judgment on that until after we've seen some facts. Okay. So let's check this out, shall we? I am going to start off today by going and checking out a certain something. Now, let's first talk about the feminist agenda, right? Come on. This was not planned. See, this is what happens when you stream from home instead of in the car. So let's talk about the feminist agenda, right? Now, the meaning of the word feminist is someone who advocates, it says advocating social, political, legal, and economic rights for women equal to men. But you guys and I know that it just means the advocacy of women's rights. Now, that's fine. But when it's not human rights and it's just women's rights, that then becomes a problem. Because if it's just women's rights, then it's someone's responsibility to give them those rights. And this is a bit of an issue because when you don't turn your phone on silent, these things happen. There we go. So yeah, I mean, if you've got something where women have legally enshrined entitlements, aka rights given to them, it's then somebody's responsibility to uphold those rights. And those responsibilities fall squarely on the men because, well, the women aren't going to uphold the rights that they're entitled to, right? Because someone should just hand that to them. That's kind of how it works. If it's human rights, it's the government's responsibility. But if it's just women's rights, then it's everyone but the women's responsibility to give the women those rights. So what does agenda mean? Well, agenda. So what it means is a list, plan, outline, or the like of things to be done, matters to be acted or voted upon. So if we're talking about a feminist agenda, by definition, that means a list of or plan or outline of or the like of things to be done, matters to be acted or voted upon within the framework of women's rights and legally enshrined entitlements. So our ABC is quite a biased organization, unfortunately. And as a result of this, I thought, well, what better place to go to for a list of the worst organizations to go to for men in Australia than the ABC? So I went to this particular article here. I'm going to just bring it up. Now, this was in the wake of the coronavirus, right? And New South Wales government secures $21 million for domestic violence support during coronavirus lockdown. So this $21 million is just for the lockdown, nothing else. Only the lockdown. Let that sink in for a moment. Now you'll notice here that on the right-hand side, there's actually a number of services. So family and domestic violence support, you can see all here, which sounds all nice and frilly, and it sounds fantastic. It sounds like just what you need in a time of crisis, right? Now, before I go to any of these, I'm just going to share a few little things with you. So there's a few things that you need to know, which are going to be very interesting in terms of fitting the puzzle together for you. So there's this thing called the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children. Now, I've got that up here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. The National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children was endorsed by the Council of Australian Governments, or COAG, and released in February 2011. Now, that basically, this 12-year plan is finished in 2 years. So it's almost up. Now, fingers crossed, this is not going to be renewed after it completes. Not because I don't want people to be protected. For sure I do. People who are vulnerable, people who are victims of violence, they should be protected. That is my view. And I don't think there would be too many people that would oppose that view at any significant level. All right? Now, in order to understand what's going on here, you need to understand the Duluth model. Now, the Duluth model is something incredibly insidious, and it's something that I'm going to be sharing with you very, very shortly. But basically, with the Duluth model, it's commonly called the power and control. So whenever you hear feminist activists particularly talking about how men use power and control over women, that power and control thing, that is what they are referring to quite specifically and implicitly. Now, something that I found really interesting was that the stated goal of the measure of success of the national plan to reduce violence against women and their children, not to reduce violence against men, might I note, have a look at this. This is the measure of success. So the success of outcome 5 will be measured by an increase in the rate of women reporting domestic violence and assault. Let that sink in. So basically, their measure of success is going to be if more women report domestic violence and sexual assault. Tell me how increasing the rates of violence and sexual assault is actually going to fix the problem. Well, the thing is, it's actually not. See, what they want to do is they want to tighten the vice more. They want to lock down on men even more. And they want to create a situation where more men are getting convicted than ever before, which means they can then go to the government and say, hey, look at all of this increase in domestic violence being reported by women. We need more funding. Think about that for a moment, right? Because that's actually exactly what's happening right now. So under this national plan, and I talk a lot about the indoctrination, feminist indoctrination going on in universities. And I'd like to share this particular thing with you. Charles Sturt University here, domestic and family. You know what? Before I do anything here, I'm going to go back to where we were before. I want to share the power and control wheel with you. This is the Duluth model. This is the power and control wheel. Right? So using coercion and threats, making and or carrying out threats to do something to hurt her, threatening to leave her. Have a read of these, guys. These read like all of the things that you would typically see women doing towards men. And I've experienced almost all of these things in my relationships, and I'm sure most of you guys have. Right? Using intimidating, making her afraid by losing looks, smashing things, destroying property, abusing pets, displaying weapons. I've had my stuff smashed before. Using emotional abuse, putting her down, making her feel bad about herself. I've been put down and made feel bad about myself before. I've been called names, right? People have made me think I'm crazy, right? I mean, I don't fall victim to it anymore because I know the deal. I know that this is just women's tactics when they're being abusive, when they are actually abusive. Humiliating her, making her feel guilty. That's happened to me. Oh, this is a big one. Using isolation, controlling what she does, who she sees and talks to. Let's get into this, right? How many times have you heard a girl say, I don't want you talking to him. I don't want you talking to her. I don't want you looking at those girls on Instagram. Delete her. Block her. You know what I mean? Like that kind of behavior. Where it goes, oh, you're not going out with the boys. You're not going here. You're not going there. Right? Using jealousy to justify the actions. Well, you just make me really jealous. I can't help it. Sound familiar? Here we go. Making light of the abuse and not taking her concerns about it seriously. So if I was to say, hey, you're actually being really abusive right now. Oh, don't be a baby. I just pinched you. Sound familiar? Using children. This is a big one. Making her feel guilty about the children. Using the children to relay messages. Using visitation to harass her. Guys, how many of you with kids have been harassed during visitation by your ex-wife? How many of you have had your ex-wife or your ex-partner threaten to take the kids away or made you feel guilty about the children or use the children to relay messages from her. Nasty messages, often. And then, of course, we have the old chestnut using male privilege, treating her like a servant, making all the big decisions, acting like the master of the castle. Now, I don't know about any of you, but if you've ever lived with a woman, you know you don't get to make the big decisions around the house most of the time. They want to dictate where the live, laugh, love signs go and all this sort of stuff. Then economic abuse. So we're not allowed to give her an allowance. That's illegal. Giving a woman an allowance is illegal. It's considered family violence. You quite literally have to just give her free reign of the family finances. Just give her the key card, give her the credit card, let her do whatever she wants. That is the only way to prevent yourself from being accused of family violence. I kid you not. All right, so let's just let that sink in for a second. Now, here is that national plan to reduce violence against women and their children that I told you about before. Now, this is on the Charles Sturt University website. You'll see csu.edu.au. This is the proper website from them. And it says here, a pattern, domestic and family violence, a pattern of coercive tactics, which can include physical, psychological, sexual, economic, and emotional abuse perpetrated by one person in order to establish and maintain power and control. Remember the power and control wheel I just showed you, gentlemen. This is how it all links together, right? Now, let's have a look. We've got inclusion. Oh, so diverse, so diverse. Service directory, 1-800-RESPECT has a domestic violence service directory, which can be searched by region or community group. Now, the DAISY app. DAISY is an app developed by 1-800-RESPECT to connect people experiencing violence or abuse to services in their local area. It can be downloaded free. Now, what I'm going to quickly do, I'm actually going to go and show you that app. Now, tell me what, if you can read that. Tell me what that says on the screen. If you can read it. DAISY, connecting women. Thought that's interesting. That's really interesting. Let's have a bit more of a look at DAISY and see what DAISY is all about in actuality. Here we go. We've got DAISY, help is available. Many women experience sexual assault, family and domestic violence. No mention of men. DAISY is brought to you by 1-800-RESPECT with input from all of the states and territories of Australia under the national plan to reduce violence against women and their children. Not to reduce violence against men or just humans in general, women and their children. Not your children, by the way, gentlemen. Their children, the woman's children. Here we go. National telephone and online counseling service for people who've been affected by sexual assault. You notice here that the third one down is the men's referral service. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. So let's go back to this for a second. Scroll down a little further. Charles Sturt University has partnered with Lifeline to run a free 2-hour interactive presentation to staff and students. This training is funded by the Department of Social Services, right? And the Department of Social Services are the ones who implemented the national plan to reduce violence against women and their children. At the end of the awareness session, attendees will primarily familiarize themselves with the cycle of violence and Duluth wheels. Power and control. Remember power and control again. Power and control. Let's just bring that up again. Right? This is so important to understand. This is at the heart of that wheel. So the cycle of violence and Duluth wheels, power and control, equality and empowerment. Interesting. And I thought I'll go and have a look at the 1-800-RESPECT website as well, because DAISY, this app here, is run by Medibank Private Limited. Right? So by the way, guys, if you are currently with AHM, if you're with Medibank, if you're with any of the Medibank private companies for absolutely anything, and if you don't support this stuff, I definitely suggest that you look at other options, because these guys are 100% on my shit list for sure. So if we have a look at the 1-800-RESPECT launch campaign to break down barriers women with disability face. So it's honestly, it's all about women, all about women. Here we go. 1-800-RESPECT.org.au, the national plan to reduce violence against women and their children. Yeah, it's all about women and their children, not about men and their children, because your children don't belong to you. They belong to the women and the state, because the state owns the women, because the state is their new daddy. When the state owns the women, then the state owns your kids by proxy, which is why they have such an unbelievable amount of control over them. Now, they actually have so much control over them, over the ladies, and they give them so much support that for domestic violence matters. Now, I'm just going to quickly show you this, right? The Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service. If you have a quick look here, it's actually provided by Legal Aid New South Wales. The Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Program administers New South Wales government funding for a network of 29 women's domestic violence court advocacy services across the state. All right? So this is all done with government money under the Legal Aid Program to assist women with free legal support. So this says here, in ADVO matters and some APVO matters, so domestic violence orders and personal violence orders, or protection violence orders, I think it is, the Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service can assist female applicants, and female applicants only, mind you, and in some cases, female defendants. So what that means is if it's actually the female who's been charged with the crime, if it's the female who's been charged with the violent crime, right? The Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service will still help the female, still help the woman to pay their legal bills and still help them with their legal assistance. This is crazy, guys. Now, here's the last bit. I'm going to zoom in for this because this is really important. Right? In some cases, female defendants with applications and legal representation. So an application is an application to make a domestic violence order or a protection violence order or personal violence order, whatever that P stands for. With government-funded money through legal aid, the Women's Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Service will assist women who have perpetrated violence against someone else to make an application against the person that's been on the receiving end of that violence. Let that sink in for a second. Tell me we don't have a feminist-run government. All right? So this is just a snippet so far of where we've gotten to. Let me move on. So, I thought I'll go to the ABC because they're so far left that the TV is almost falling off the screen, right? And look, whether you're left-leaning in your politics or right-leaning in your politics, or you're left-leaning in some areas or right-leaning in others, or even if you're completely indifferent or politics agnostic, this stuff is really important to know, given that we have a penis, gentlemen. Let's have a look at this. New South Wales government. 1-800-RESPECT National Helpline. Is that the same one? Absolutely it is. That's the same 1-800-RESPECT. Now you'll notice that all of these photos here are all women. Now if we go to domestic and family violence here, right? It's fairly gender neutral in the way that it words things. But when you actually go to call up, because it's through the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children with government funding, it's already got the pre-existing bias. It's impossible not to. All right, so I'm just going to close these two tabs here. Let's have a look. Then we've got the Women's Crisis Line. Now let's see what it says on the Women's Crisis Line. DV Connect Women's Line. Call Women's Line 24/7 if you're experiencing domestic, family, or sexual violence. And wouldn't you know, there's a link right there to 1-800-RESPECT all over again. They've also got a link to Men's Line. Geez, that's interesting. So what's Men's Line if this is a women's domestic violence hotline? I bet it's one of those things where they tell you how to behave as a man. Call Men's Line if you're experiencing or using family, domestic, or sexual violence. Wow, you mean they can be victims as well? Oh, here we go. What is Men's Line? Men using. It's always first thing, men who are using violence in their relationships, right? Others seeking support for men using or experiencing. They always put experiencing last. It's like their little caveat. So you can't say that they're biased, right? Even though they totally are. Men using domestic violence in their relationships. Men's Line Queensland works with men to acknowledge the courage it takes. Let's see if there's anything. Where are we here? Here we go. Rarely do relationships start with abuse and violence. It's something that happens with time and very rarely improves unless the abuser is willing to put in the work required to change their behaviors. I wonder who that abuser is going to be the one. I wonder who's going to get touted as the abuser. Oh, that's right. The men under their behavior change program, which Men's Line unequivocally supports with government funding, mind you. Without collusion with men, workers will challenge alleged abusive behavior robustly, but non-judgmentally, and assess whether men comprehend the effects of violence and abuse on their partners. So it's basically just pretend like we give a shit and then we're just going to beat up on men. So that's 2 out of 2 already. Let's go to number 3. Let's see what the Men's Referral Service has to say. I love it how the website address is mrs.mrs.org.au. Oh, that's interesting. It changed from Men's Referral Service to No to Violence. Ah, so it's basically clickbait is what you're saying. Because this No to Violence is a feminist organization. I want you to look very carefully, right, at who is sponsoring this No to Violence. Hang on, let me just go here. We've got Victorian State Government. Hang on. Get off the keyboard. Victorian State Government, Tasmanian Government, Victorian Legal Aid, right? Mind you, Victoria are the ones that are giving the arts grant to Clementine Ford at the moment, even after she said not enough men are dying of coronavirus. Supported by the Attorney General's Department, and supported by Women New South Wales in the New South Wales government. And it's funded by the Australian Government Department of Social Services and the Men's Behaviour Change Network, New South Wales. Surprise, surprise. So that's 3 of 3. Right, so far, we have a 100% hit rate on this stuff. 3 of 3, all government funded. Let's continue, right? Number 4, Lifeline. Oh, gee, I remember before Charles Sturt University were paid by the Department of Social Services under the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children to teach the Duluth model, the power and control wheel, to these people that were meant to call for help after they've just viewed this thing where we've been talking about male privilege and how men use children against women, apparently, and you minimize, deny, and blame, and use isolation, and use emotional abuse, and use intimidation and coercion and threats, all the stuff that women are really, really good at. Right? These are the people we're supposed to trust after learning the power and control wheel. Give me a break. That's 4 of 4. Now let's go. Oh, don't even get me started on these motherfuckers. Relationships Australia. Well. What do we have here? Let's go and check it out, shall we? And, well, you know what? I'm going to quickly click New South Wales. I'm not going to go through all the states. Just curious, right? Relationships New South Wales Support Services. What does this look like when you click through to it as a man? Right? Because you think, oh, I want to fix my relationships. Sad female, women, more women, and the guy sitting in the background blurred out. Children and teens. Let's go to domestic violence, shall we? Let's see what they've got under more information for domestic violence. This should be good. So guys, look, this isn't any of my opinions. I'm showing this right to everyone, to YouTube moderators, to you guys watching. You can see this for yourself. Oh, there we go. Self-esteem and communication. See the woman there? Is an 8-session group for those who wish to develop their self-confidence, communication skills, and conflict resolution abilities. This may be in relation to previous stresses or difficulties in their current relationships at work, home, or in the community. And secondly, we have taking responsibility, a course for men, because men have to take responsibility for all of the bad behavior in relationships. You see, taking responsibility is an 18-session group program aimed at men who have been abusive in their relationships and are now ready to work towards building respect relationships that are caring and safe, right? Women, choice and change. It's an 8-session group for women who have experienced family violence. So 18 sessions for men who have perpetrated violence, 8 sessions for women who have experienced it. There's no reverse. There's no, I'm going to scroll all the way down the bottom. There's no reverse. There's no help for men who need support to build themselves up. There's nothing for women who behave badly. There is, however, men maintaining change. So it's an ongoing support group for men who have completed a men's behavior change group to make sure that they keep being a good little feminist like they were taught to in this group right up here. Pretty interesting, right? Bet you guys didn't think that you'd be seeing that today. Now, I also thought of something else, which I showed someone the other day and they couldn't really believe it actually. Now, there's a website, it's probably one of the most popular websites for job seeking in Australia. And I thought I would go just over to seek.com.au. I would check it out. So let's have a look what seek.com.au has to say. So I've just typed in Duluth here, D-U-L-U-T-H, nothing else. All of the other filters are clear. Any suburb or town, any job classification, I just want to search for something with Duluth in it. Let's see if we can come up with something. Interesting. What's this program facilitator role? Let's have a look, shall we? Let's zoom in a little bit so we can read this better. Anglicare is a not-for-profit organization, right? Family and domestic violence intervention service delivering rehabilitation and reintegration services to male offenders through mandated men's. By the way, when it says mandated, that's court mandated by the feminist family courts. Mandated men's behavior change groups and individual delivery in community and prison settings with the ultimate aim of enabling a safe and strong community and ceasing the cycle of family and domestic violence. And we all know that family and domestic violence is deemed to be something that only happens one way, from men to women. Now, let's also have a really quick conversation around the mandated men's behavior change groups. So if you have a DVO, domestic violence order put on you, and the solicitors at the court say, oh, look, if you just, you don't have to consent, just consent to the order. You don't have to accept it, but just consent to it and we'll be able to move on so you can do this program and you can see your kids again. No, do not ever consent. Do not ever agree. Do not ever allow anyone to proceed with putting a domestic violence order upon you for any reason whatsoever if you haven't done it. Because what you're essentially doing is you're throwing yourselves to the wolves. You are coating yourself in peanut butter and honey and throwing yourself into a bear pit. You will get eaten alive by the feminist family courts once that hangs over your heads. So about the role, as a program facilitator, you will engage men in a court-mandated targeted behavior change process to support immediate short-term and long-term behavioral and attitudinal change. Through group initiators, group and education initiatives, you will provide culturally competent rehabilitation and reintegration services to male perpetrators of family domestic violence. It is a genuine occupational requirement for this position to be female. And of course, you'd have to be a feminist. And of course, you would have to have undergone Duluth model training, power and control wheel. Let's have a look. Tertiary qualifications in human service. So you'll be a college feminist. And this is where it gets nasty. Knowledge and experience of intervention models appropriate to working with family domestic violence perpetrators, such as the Duluth Abuse Intervention Program. All right, so you basically have to work under the Duluth model. You have to be female and you have to tell men what to do. This is part of the feminist agenda. All right, this shit's pretty nasty, right, guys? This is something none of us really realize what's going on until such time as it happens, because it's so insidious and so deeply hidden. By the way, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Sheenab Man for that super chat. He says, this is ideological subversion perpetuated by cultural Marxists. It's a war that's been going on since the 50s. Wake up, men. Go your own way. Build your assets up and turn the mainstream media off. That is absolutely 100% correct. So the next thing I want to show you, because of course we went to this Relationships Australia, but I'm actually going to show you something that you don't know about Relationships Australia. Have a look at this. Just going to drag this over. This is an internal procedural handbook from Relationships Australia, Western Australia, right? Recommendations of the WA Family and Domestic Violence State Strategic Plan, the best practice model for the provision of programs for perpetrators of domestic violence. RAWA's family and domestic violence policy is historically framed by a feminist analysis of gendered power relations. This argues, it doesn't prove, it just argues that men have had status and privileges in society that have generally been unavailable to women. Interesting, because of men's control of social structures and practices. Now, here's page 2 of that. Within this cultural context, men have had relatively more power. Well, that's subjective. Feminist analysis. Here we go. We scroll down bottom right. Safety of well-being of the persons, predominantly women. Family and domestic violence is a violation of fundamental human rights, as long as it doesn't happen towards a woman. Right? There we go. Power imbalances, gender inequality. These are all feminist rhetoric. These are all feminist phrases. Now, what I've actually done here as well is I found this. This is back to men's behavior change programs. Those who choose to use violence within their intimate family relationships should be held accountable and responsible for their behaviors. So I'm just going to skip forward to this because otherwise I'll be going through the booklet all day and I'm not going to cover all of it. But I've actually put the Duluth model over to the side of this. I've sort of stretched it out a bit. And I've highlighted and linked all of the forms of violent controlling behavior they mentioned from the Duluth model to that portion of the pie in the Duluth model. So you can see how this all actually correlates and how they are working off the feminist Duluth model. This is unbelievably insidious. This is what's been going on. This is what has gone unchecked for far too long, right? Vention MGTOW just said $18 Bitcoin tip to my crypto wallet. Thank you so much, Vention. I really appreciate that, man. What a legend. YouTube is not getting a cent of that money. So thank you very much for that, man. You're a legend. And Successful Endeavor says, Sid, how's your mom? Man, my mom's doing well. I think she's starting chemo probably this week, by my understanding. And Honest Person Relationships Australia are heavily involved with child contact in many instances and family report writing, by my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But yeah, they're pretty deep in the system. They're a fairly integral part, and they are something that's recommended quite regularly by judges. Now let's move back to this, right? Because so far we have a hit rate of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 5. And I'm not going to spend as much time on the rest of these, simply because obviously men's referral service on Lifeline, they and the 1-800-RESPECT, there's a lot of kind of intertwining going in there. There's a lot of insidious stuff with Relationships Australia as well. All of the rest of these are pretty straightforward, to be honest with you. So let's go to New South Wales Domestic Violence Line, Family and Community Service. Here we go. Domestic Violence Line is a New South Wales statewide telephone crisis counselling and referral service for women, including trans women. Is there anything to help men? No. Aboriginal women and women from other cultures? Nope. Oh, there's the men's line to tell us how to be a good little male feminist and how to behave like a puppy dog and do whatever we're told to by female. Female staff can also explain what an apprehended violence order is. So that means there's no male staff. That's what that actually means. So when you hear language is very important. The wording will tell you everything that you need to know. Here we go. Tell your workplace about the New South Wales Domestic Violence Line. Download this poster and place it in a public area of your office. Oh, let's have a look at the poster, shall we? Let's check that out. A3 poster about the New South Wales Domestic Violence Line. This poster outlines what types of support services women can be linked up with if they call the line. Let's have a look at this poster, shall we? God, this will be good. There's no excuse for domestic violence. See, it's got a woman and a woman. Just women. Men don't suffer from. Men are never on the receiving end of violence, right? Just ask the New South Wales government. They'll tell you. They're telling us right now with this poster. So I'll go back. So right now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 6. 6 out of 6. This isn't looking too promising. Queensland Domestic Violence Connect Women's Line. We help Queensland women, men, children, and pets, but it's really women's line. It's really about women. This is actually basically DV Connect again. It's basically the women's crisis line. So if we go to the women's crisis line and the Queensland DV Connect, it's the same damn thing. It's just, honestly, they're just linking back to each other at this point, right? Look at the URL, DV Connect, dvconnect.org/women's line. It's the same thing. And it's still got the men's line there with the 1-800-RESPECT. It's all linked together. So far I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 7. Let's go to Victoria. I'm not holding out much help for them, given that the men's referral service went to No to Violence, which is sponsored by the Victorian state government. Oh, geez, look, no men on that page. What is family? Oh, here we go. Supporting women and children to live free from family violence. We assist women and their children experiencing family violence. We help family violence survivors overcome trauma and thrive in lives free. We work towards a community free from family violence through education, aka men's behavior change programs. Know how to act when you witness a situation of abuse. So how to white knight is what they're saying. How to get involved in something that isn't your business, right? Because how many times have we seen men where those men have actually stepped in a violent situation to protect a woman? Those men have actually gotten beaten up themselves. I'm not going to be that dude. That's not happening. I ain't facing no Cassidy Boone telling me that I raped her because I saved her from drowning, right? That's just, it's just not gonna, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not playing the game. So far I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 8. 100% strike rate. Let's go for lucky number 9. ACT. So ACT is actually Australian Capital Territory. That's where Canberra is. That's where Parliament House is. Basically, the ACT is our political hub of Australia. It is where our federal government is based, and it is where essentially our nation gets governed from on a higher level than just state-based. This is Domestic Violence Crisis Service. Who does it affect? Oh, there we go. Women, children, and young people. Oh, yeah, it affects men. How does it affect men, though? Tell me more. Because I noticed that here it says support programs for women, families, and young people, but no support programs for men at all whatsoever. What's the men's one? Oh, hang on. Domestic and family violence happens to men too, including men in same-sex relationships. So let's divert this back to a situation in which the man would again have to be the perpetrator. This is the insidiousness of the language. People who use violence against men include their children, wives, or partners, ex-partners. So it does acknowledge it, but it certainly... There we go. 1-800-RESPECT, Lifeline, Relationships Australia, Men's Line. Fuck that. See, this is how they link you back. Because by the time you get to the bottom of the page, you're like, oh, they're going to help me. They're going to help me. Oh, they actually care. Oh, Men's Line, Lifeline, Relationships Australia. Back to the feminist hotlines. So I reckon that's 9 out of 9 so far, personally. Tasmania Family Violence. Now, remember, Tasmania was also one of the family violence organizations which was sponsoring the No to Violence, which was the, what was it, the women's crisis line, whichever one it was before, the No to Violence one. Here we go. What do I got here? That's actually quite small, so I'm going to zoom in there. Never heard that before. So I'm not getting a lot of information here. Let's just quickly have a look to see what's going on here, to see if these two places recognize anything logically. Oh, here we go. Safe at Home is the Tasmanian government's integrated criminal justice response to family violence. That's their way of saying, hey, we're using the Duluth model in Australia. Whenever you see integrated criminal justice response, that means they're using the Duluth model. Anything integrated, because that's how the Duluth model works. It integrates with interagencies. It involves a range of services working together to protect and support victims of family violence, including young people and children, while making offenders responsible for their behaviors. Offenders. And over to the left, National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children. Called it, knew it. There it is. Knew it. See, like when you basically follow the yellow brick road, you get led down. It's just feminist propaganda. This one here has obviously closed the website. I don't know what's going on there. So there we go. We have another one. Tasmania is also anti-male. Now let's go to South Australia. womensafetyservices.com.au. Oh, well, I think we're pretty safe to say that this isn't going to be male friendly. Domestic violence crisis line, if you're living in a violent relationship. Let's see. Forms of domestic violence. Here's to strong women. May we know them. May we be them. May we raise them. My coach said, I ran like a girl, and I said if he ran like a little faster, he could too. Oh, such a badass. Funny. Women, you are 1,000 stories long with the depth of the ocean and an entire constellation woven into your soul. Oh. Now, here we go. Let's look at these, right? So what does domestic violence look like? Physical violence. Right? Do you remember the do you remember all these ones? Because I sure do. Let's actually refer these back. So verbal abuse. humiliating the woman, eroding her confidence, putting her down, telling her that she's useless and worthless. So that's yeah, there we go, emotional abuse, putting her down, making her feel bad about herself, calling her names. That's the one. Sexual abuse, right? Forcing her to have sex, threatening her as a sex slave, physically attacking the sexual parts of her body, right? So, whereabouts is that one there? That's up here. So, I guess it's probably under the coercion and threats, except you'd actually be going ahead with it. In fact, it mentions sexual in the top right-hand corner there. So that kind of encompasses all of this. Social abuse isolates the woman and prevents her from having a life, isolates her from family, may include criticizing her friends, right? That's the isolation quadrant of the Duluth model. Spiritual abuse, basically hurting her feelings by not allowing her to be spiritual. Emotional and psychological abuse, threaten to harm, abuser may use silence as a weapon, humiliates the woman. I mean, this is it's just all of this. It really is. It's all of this. And then, of course, there's the economic abuse as well. So this is just basically Duluth Model 101, but in a different format. So I think it's safe to say that South Australian domestic violence helpline is only helpful if you have a vagina. Western Australia women's domestic violence 24-hour helpline. Let's have a look at that one, shall we? The Women's Domestic Violence Helpline is a statewide 24-hour service. This service provides support and counseling for women experiencing family and domestic violence. This includes phone counseling, information and advice, referral to local advocacy and support services, liaison with police if necessary, and support in escaping situations. Service can refer women to safe accommodation if required. The telephone-based interpreting service is also required if available. So I thought to myself, well, surely there's a men's domestic violence hotline for Western Australia as well, right? And it turns out that I'm absolutely 100% right. There actually are domestic violence helplines there. So I thought, let's actually go and check these out. Let's have a look at the comparison between the two. Because you've just seen the women's domestic violence hotline, right? Let's just go back to that one there. So you see that one there? All right, 24-hour service, help and counseling for women experiencing family violence. Includes counseling, support services, liaison with police, etc. Let's have a look at what they have for men. It's a statewide 24-hour service that provides counseling for men who are concerned about their violent and abusive behaviors. The service can provide telephone counseling, information, and referral to ongoing face-to-face services if required. The service can provide information about accessing legal advice, accommodation, and other support services for people who have been served with a violence restraining order. Information and support is also available for men who have experienced family and domestic violence, but I think you and I both know. So let's go here, right? Let's go here. For other services that might be able to assist, please click here. Let's see who else can assist. Women's Domestic Violence Helpline can help with men's domestic violence, apparently. Sexual Assault Resource Center. Men's Domestic Violence Helpline provides counseling and referrals for male perpetrators. And Crisis Care Helpline. Let's have a look at the Crisis Care and the Sexual Assault Resource Center, just so I've covered all bases. Let's check this out, shall we? Here we go. Okay, so look, it seems to be relatively gender neutral. Fingers crossed that is the case. I can't see anything that appears to be biased here specifically. So hopefully that is not actually biased. Fingers crossed. And let's go and have a look at the crisis care. So, of course, crisis care helpline, it's provided by Western Australia's DCP, which are the same people that was giving me this helpline. Sorry, this helpline. Yeah, here we go. On the right-hand side of the men's one, because obviously I clicked from there. On the right-hand side, you can't even make this stuff up. This is meant to be help for men, right? Daisy, violence against women is unacceptable. So that one's just struck out for me also. So I reckon it's pretty safe to say, in all reality, that unless Northern Territory Domestic Violence Helpline is going to come out as gender neutral, we have a 100% strike rate out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different hotlines. Please let Northern Territory have something half responsible. Oh God, there's Lifeline. Yeah, that doesn't help. And 1-800-737. I've seen that number. 1-800-737. So basically, oh wow. You know what I just realized? So notice how it's like 737-732 domestic violence helpline. Have a look. 737-732. 1-800-RESPECT. 737-732. Interesting, right? So it's basically just feeding you back to the Medibank run feminist hotline. So guys, if anything happens to you, real good luck to you, because we've got Lifeline here. We've got Men's Line, which is the No to Violence, the feminist organization supported by the Tasmanian government, the Victorian government, the Department of Social Services under the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and Their Children, and Beyond Blue, of whom Julia Gillard, up until recently, I'm not sure if she still is or not, but she was the chair. And Julia Gillard was also the one where within 6 days of her becoming Prime Minister, she removed the perjury laws in the family court. Yeah, that's right. She gave license to the feminist groups to lie and destroy men with impunity. So those three are on the shit list for me. Headspace, I believe, is pretty good. It's my understanding. Kids Helpline, I think they're pretty good as well. But from everything I've seen, I'd imagine they'd come down harder on an abusive dad than they would on an abusive mother. But that's just purely speculation. I can't say 100% either way. Here we go. You know, again, 1-800-RESPECT. It's a stitch up. It is an absolute stitch up. In fact, here we go. Safe Steps Crisis. Did we cover this before? I have a feeling we did. Yep, there we go. It's all rigged, guys. Do not even bother with any of these hotlines. Go straight to the police, go with a friend, have your voice recorded going, even have video recorded going. If you can, if you've got like a little GoPro or something. Make sure that you capture. Make sure you print out off the police website in your state, just for the record as well. Because when I, for example, go to Police New South Wales Domestic Violence, I'm just going to bring up what the New South Wales police definition is for DV. Now, guys, I know this has been a very long video. Thank you so much for staying with me. There is a lot to obviously cover. And it is really important that you guys know this stuff because it's something that you wouldn't otherwise be aware of. That's just the reality of the situation. So I'm going to go to the domestic and family violence section of the New South Wales Police website. So for argument's sake, I know a lot of you guys are in the US, but you can use this exact same principle. You can use this exact same framework. So what is domestic violence? Let's get the definition of that from the police website. All right, domestic and family violence behaviors. Pattern of behaviors can include escalating levels of abuse and violence, intimidation, stalking, physical abuse, sexual assault, verbal abuse and or threats, psychological abuse, threats to harm others and or causing harm to pets, threats to damage property or actually damaging property, financial deprivation and social isolation, coercive control in order to maintain control over the victim's behavior or have them suffer emotional or physical torment and live in fear. Now, as of late, the New South Wales and the Victorian police have been copping an absolute dicking for their mishandling of these kind of cases. So what I would say to you is, not only should you be video recording and audio recording where possible, any interactions between you and your ex-partner or your current partner if you sense things going a bit sour, but you should also do it every time you see them afterwards, even during the kids exchange, even when you think things should be fine, they're possibly not going to be. And just, guys, honestly, just do your due diligence, have your evidence. So when you walk into that police station, when you walk in, you say, hey, I'm suffering domestic violence. She's been intimidating me. There's been escalating levels of abuse, right? You can see her like screaming at you and it's getting louder and louder and she's getting even more and more irrational and angry, right? She's saying, I don't want you hanging out with your friend. Any of these things, print out the police website. Print out what is domestic violence from the police website of your jurisdiction in which you live. Print it out and take it to them and be like, hey, I'm on the receiving end of domestic violence from my partner. They'll be like, well, what's happened? Did she stab you? No, well, she screams at me a hell of a lot and it's regular. She's very abusive, always putting me down, doing these things. No, mate, just you can go home, have a chat to her. Hey, this is from your website. This is the definition of domestic violence. Here's my evidence. By the way, I've got a copy at home. So if you need to take this, you can, right? Let them know that they don't have control of your evidence. Grab them by the balls, the metaphorical balls. Even if they're female, right? Metaphorical, not literal, obviously. Make sure you've got that evidence. Make sure you can prove it. Make sure that they know in no uncertain terms that you know exactly what the definition of domestic violence is on their website and that it is not gendered on their website, even though it's based on the gendered Duluth model, the power and control wheel. Fucking Duluth model. Motherfucker. So yeah, let them know, hey, I actually know what domestic violence is in this state. This is evidence of domestic violence occurring. If you do not press charges on her, I will be pressing charges against you for failing to act on a crime that has been committed in one of the most serious areas, which is domestic violence. If you do not record this as a domestic violence incident, if you do not have her charged with domestic violence, I will see you in court and I will write to the police commissioner and I will send them the video of this interaction or the audio recording. Well, that's assuming you can do it in your state under the laws, but you can say, I'm going to write to the police commissioner and tell them exactly what was said word for word. And if I have to, I will take you to court. And when I take you to court, that evidence will be admissible in court and I will use it against you. And I will have my case upheld. And I will get compensation. And you will be forced to concede. You don't need to say it in that way. But you need to let them know that you won't be fucked with and that you're not just going to be tossed around and you're not just going to be a little bitch boy that rolls over and plays dead. Because this is the system and you've got to play the game, guys. It's not in your favor if you don't work it properly. So especially if you're doing custody handovers, get yourself a body cam. If she gets upset with it, too bad. Too fucking bad. Because she's going to lose it on the body cam. She's going to get the shits. And just going to say, look, it's, for your safety and for mine, because, I'm not going to say anything mean towards you. Like it's just reassure, like, because why would I say something to incriminate myself? This just reassures you that I'm going to do the right thing every time when I come over. But what it's really reassuring you of is that you're going to catch everything she says on camera. So if she says anything like, oh, I'm not letting you see the kids, got him. You know why? Because last time I checked, the power and control wheel had using the kids. So she can't do that. There it is right there, using children, making her feel guilty about the children, using the children to relay a message, threatening to take the children away. That is family violence by definition. Play the game, guys. Do what you got to do. Anyway, man, I'm out of here for now. This has been an hour-long stream. I just wanted to say massive thank you to all of you that have donated via Super Chat and also via crypto. And if anyone has donated by PayPal in the interim while I haven't been looking. In fact, let me just quickly check that now so that I can acknowledge anyone who has. Okay, no PayPal. All good, all good. Don't have to acknowledge anyone on that one. Man, I appreciate you all. I hope you appreciate this knowledge. I hope it helps you to understand the feminocracy that we're living under right now. And I hope it helps you in a custody case. I hope it helps you to not fall into the traps that so many men fall into. And I hope it helps you to navigate these shark-ridden waters with a bit more ease. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always. I've had a lot of fun using this new setup with the green screen behind me and the palatial mansion in the background. Love me a bit of piano, right? All right, man, I'm out of here. I appreciate you all. I look forward to catching you in the next video. If you do want to donate, feel free to do it by the usual method in the description below. If you do want to support this channel in a non-monetary way, or if you actually want to get something back for your donation, head on over to sydneymigtow.com/Brave. Try out Brave browser. It's an amazing replacement for Google Chrome with way more privacy. It's nice and fast. It's easy to use. It's enjoyable. I use it on all my devices. Highly recommend. And if you want to get yourself a better mobile deal and you have Optus 4G reception in your area, head on over to sydneymigtow.com/prepaid. You will be able to get your hands on for the next 2 or 3 days a red hot deal. In fact, let me take you there. I'm just gonna do this. Let's go. / There we go. So this is it here, guys. Here we go. Deal ends 31st of May. So if you're in Australia, you can get 200 gigabyte of data for $40 every 28 days. That's $10 a week, basically, for 200 gig of data a month. Unlimited talk and text to standard numbers in Australia. Unlimited international talk and text to these 19 countries. So I'll just zoom that in a bit for you. And that does help to support the channel. So, oh, hang on. Those are the 19 countries there. Canada, China, Germany, India, Ireland, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, UK, Vietnam, Chile, France, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, Thailand, and USA. And that is let me go back to that. sydneymigtow.com/prepaid. And it will take you here. Zoom out a little bit. There we go. 200 gig, 40 days, $40 for 28 days, unlimited talk and text Australia. If you do get this offer, make sure you set up the direct debit so that you get that deal for as long as you stay on the plan. Otherwise, it could potentially run out. Anyway, gentlemen, look, that's all I've got for you for now. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I really appreciate you guys coming in and showing the love. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next one. All right, guys. See you later. Peace.